We know who excites Jack the most. Do you know who excites you the most?
Nice job in the offensive end. Halper up ahead for Leifer. Leifer,
let's do it.
Throws the alley-oop for Turell. Oh my goodness!
Got the alley-oop playing. Oh, we're here.
Yo! Shady, we're back. We are back, baby. Bein Hazmanim is finally over. And we're coming in hot for a little Night Seder action. The Ball Habatim are in effect. Our first episode since last season. And guys, we got an absolute banger of an episode for you tonight. We got the old band back together along with some new faces. We're going to bring on some VIPs. It's going to be awesome. But first, let's introduce the Chevra. Tonight, we're Fear and Tish with the Grizzled Vet, a.k.a. the former Mac, a.k.a. the Big Dog, a.k.a. Priest Mode. He loves it when you call him Rav Papa. It's Natan HaKohen. Cohen.
Baby.
Let's do it. We also have with us our resident stat head, a.k.a. the Professor, a.k.a. the Admor of Analytics, a.k.a. for whom the bell curve tolls. He's the Mashkiach Ruchani of the Derek Jeter's Defense Appreciation Society. He's Rabbeinu Shua, also HaKohen, Cohen Shlita. And now, ladies and gentlemen, making his Ball Habatim debut. If we had drum roll sound effects, guys, we'd be playing them out the wazoo right now. I have the honor and the privilege of introducing the Rebbe of the Max Stern Athletic Center, a.k.a. Yaakov Avinu, a.k.a. the greatest color man ever to grace the Max Live broadcast. The Jack Attack is back, baby.
Wow, baby.
Jack Turell!
This is amazing. I really thought I was going to get introduced as Ryan's brother. So
yes,
just all that stuff. That
I'm not even doing the Ryan's brother thing. Like Jack Turell is dominating the airwaves on his own merits. This is going to be rocking.
Let's
I,
go.
of course, am one half of the Bandwagon Boys, Ari Lamb, my other and better half, Simi Cohen, will be joining us in the chat, joining us in future episodes. The Bandwagon Boys are in effect. And of course, as always, we have the one and only, the mighty Mayor Wiesel, aka Mayor Meisel on the ones and twos, engineering us to the moon. And as Mayor always tells me to tell you, please like and subscribe to the Ball Habatim on YouTube to keep current with us and Fear Tish with us. All right, so gentlemen.
By the way, happy birthday to the other half of the Bandwagon Boys.
Yes, happy birthday. Yom Yom Huledet to my other half, one half of the Bandwagon Boys, Simi Cohen. Happy birthday, brother. Make this
Jack, in this space here, you're the 5-tool player. You're the recruit. All right.
Okay.
In this space right
I got to
here,
make my
you've
rookie.
got all the talent.
I got to make my rookie dues, right? I got to. What are the hazing processes that's going to go on in the Ball Habatim? I'm eager to find out.
Unbelievable.
We'll put our inside YU guy to work, throughout the season. But for now,
oh my God, unbelievable.
For now, let's get this thing started.
Let's rock and roll, boys. I mean, listen, let's get started. First of all, welcome back, everybody. This is unreal. Another season of Max Basketball, the first full season of Max Basketball that will have the Ball Habatim from start to finish. And as such, I think this may be the best season in the history of Max Basketball. Just saying. This is going to be a total banger of a season. So first of all, Natan, get us started off. Welcome back. What are your thoughts coming off a spring, a summer without Max Basketball, getting revved up for a new year of Max Basketball? Where are your thoughts? Where's your head at?
We all needed to decompress after a high pressure last season, national coverage. I mean, everything that you could want. We started We started this in the midst of all the attention, right? The streak, all the national attention, everything that was going on. And I think it was really awesome to see this. And we talked about, right, can the program get to a level where the conversation, the talent, everything can be sustained? I think my big takeaway, outside of the just enormous hakarat hatov that we have for doing this show, I missed you guys in particular. But I think, from a basketball perspective, seeing this off season, whether you read Popper's tweets or the other thing, other conversations that were going on, Max Basketball is here and ready to perform at a high level. And they are, if not the favorite, one of the favorites to win the Skyline conference. And that's a huge deal. I mean, really a huge deal and something we need to sustain going forward.
Can we talk about that? Like, what does it mean? What does it mean, Shua, to come into a season and basically have our baseline be, are we favorites to win the Skyline? Like, just have that be the baseline.
Well, they're the favorite to win the Skyline Conference, and I'll tell you why. A lot of people may think that, oh yeah, Farmingdale, they beat us last year. That other team, St. Joe's, they beat us last year. And last year's team, they had all these players and all these stars. Hogwash to both those things. First of all, that whole team from last year, they were weird.
Hebrew Academy of Greater Washington. Hogwash. I love it.
Hogwash. And I'll tell you why. For some reason, that team last year had some weird thing every time they played Farmingdale. We'll call it the ghost of Ryan's rookie year past, or whatever you want to call it. But for some reason, every time they played those guys, even if Farmingdale was the less talented team, they got weird. They got it in their own head. This is a clean slate. This is right after Yom Kippur. We just got the stamp of approval, and we got no sins on the slate. We don't have any ghosts of the past. Farmingdale will have to come in probably with their head a little higher. And that's what I like about this team. If you ask Doc Rivers what his favorite team to coach was it the 08 Celtics? Was it the 14 Clippers? The answer has always been the 03 Magic. Why is that? And Steinmetz could probably even attest to it. It's much easier and much more fun to get guys to buy in on a team that hasn't accomplished anything yet than a team with a lot of egos and a lot of accomplishments. You could say that last year they had a lot of accomplishments on the roster, a lot of egos on the roster. So I'm excited to see what this season they got to bring to the table.
I mean, look, we're coming. The cool thing is, and I think, look, we'll get to the new players. We can talk to some of them hopefully later on the episode. But one amazing thing, even as a bandwagon fan, is I think back to something that the Chief Rabbi of New York City, Bob Quillman, told us last year, which is our baseline expectation.
By the way, drinking game. That's one. I got the cue all season long. By the way, that's our drinking game.
I think, like, what he needs now, Bob, by the way, is like the trajectory for chief rabbis is like you get promoted to a lord, right? Like that was the Rabbi Sachs path. So, I mean, Bob's next thing is like House of Lords, I think. But whatever, we'll deal with that one time.
We have to beat Illinois Wesleyan
this year. Does he get the promotion?
Listen, what I want to know is which one of us steps into the chief rabbi of Illinois role if and when we take home a W against Illinois Wesleyan at some point. So
let's see who's gonna make the cross country trip. All right.
Could we make the rabbinic council?
Yeah, we like the Aguda of the Midwest. Basically.
I like it.
That's what we're putting together here, basically. So
yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, like, it's unbelievable. Like, I just think that's something Bob said to us on one of the episodes last year, where he's like, YU being a good team, that was like level 1. Level 2 is now YU's a good program. And one of the amazing things to see as we head into the season is that YU is showing all the signs so far of being a good program. That means another good recruiting class. That means a lot of extremely talented new faces who aren't just going to be one and dones, but who are actually coming in and saying, hey, let's build something here. I mean, we're starting to see the fruits of a lot of the labor of the last couple of years. And in that respect, I mean, I know we said this last season, I'll say it again. We said on the wrap-up episode last season, I really think that what we watched last season and the last like couple of years, as amazing, as fun, as awesome as it was, I do not think we have seen the best Max team in history yet. And I think that's really exciting.
Sure. I want to hear your perspective on this, especially after, a couple guys won some, statistical awards for the NCAA, not just for, Division III or for YU or for Skyline. Like, are we seeing a program? Are we seeing consistency?
So I'd like to believe so. Obviously, we had the best player in YU history for the last 4 seasons. We will not, unless something extraordinarily unlikely occurs, have the best player in YU history on the team this season. But like we were talking about, they were very top heavy. They had some superstars, but there was a big relative drop off after that. So having a more consistent roster top to bottom that, like Jack was talking about, doesn't have necessarily and I'm not calling out any specific players or anything, doesn't have like the ego of a superstar player that comes naturally and also is sometimes integral to being a superstar is having that ego. But to have a team without any like outsized stars like that and more consistent from top to bottom in terms of the rotation could potentially be a beneficial like next step in this evolution of the program.
Listen,
So
sometimes
I'm
we talk
really
about
excited to
superstars,
see it.
right?
But
I mean,
even-
true,
but even-
sometimes we talk about superstars, right? We say ego, and I think everybody sometimes hears like, oh, that means a prima donna, but I don't think that's what it means. Meaning, when you have a superstar, a lot of times you get deference from everybody else. Meaning, if you have someone that you know will do it all the time, other players feel like they don't have to necessarily step up as often or push their game as much because you have that superstar to really go to and rely on. So it doesn't have to be about like the superstar sort of vibe, but sometimes it's not about like a black hole, right? In some of those Kobe years or whatever it might be, but you have this, team of players who feel like they don't have to be the man, right? And I think now you're coming into a season where you don't know who's going to be the man on this team. You have some great, really great consistent players coming back in terms of Matan and Ofek, but what else is going to happen? There's so much new talent here.
But even on the thing of ego, and to touch a point on the superstar thing, it doesn't even mean that. Like, ego doesn't necessarily mean a player who's full of himself. The amount of outside distractions that team had, whether it be the New York Times at every ball game, NBA teams in the stands, the AP with the camera and interviewing, and something that the team that went to the Sweet 16 did that by the time this team came around didn't do. The team that went to the Sweet 16, having been like really, really involved, friends with a lot of those guys closer in age, they didn't do any interviews. They didn't talk to the press. It was very new and it was very weird and it was uncomfortable. They were like, all right, that's that. And we're going to do our thing. And they had the leaders to do that. But 3 years into it, it became like part of the culture. It was AP in the locker room, part of the thing. And it became more of a spectacle. Now, if you're the coach coaching this spectacle and you have the Nuggets on the sideline and you have the AP over there and you have the Associated Press there and you have it's so much things that are other than basketball that you have to worry about. It's not ego in terms of no one's going to get mad if they get pulled. Those guys were great guys. Ryan's a great guy. Gabe's a great guy. Eitan's a great guy. And Ofek and all those guys are great guys. They're good teammates. But it's all the other stuff that comes with it. So I'm really excited to see what this fresh team where the doubters turn the page could do with a brand new book. That's what I'm
Sure, does that become part of the pitch though? I mean, as much of it's a distraction, do you think that helps get some of do we think that helped get some of the new talent, right? Both in terms of being able to take notice and also in terms of sort of making that commitment? Is there does that become part of the pitch? I completely get it. I think we talked about that a lot, right? Especially after the IW game, right? Was the streak and all these things, was it a distraction? Is there too much going on? Is it unnatural? I wonder though how it helps on the recruiting end, or does it really hey, that's not us. That's not what you're going to experience every year. So don't, let's focus on the basketball.
Yes, I think there's a difference between what Jack was talking about and what you're talking about from a recruiting perspective. What Jack was talking about is more the spectacle of having overtime do videos and having the AP, the New York Times, the press always there. I think the stronger recruiting pitch is more just the general fandom and the very intense fandom, and also the amount of people who watch the games are greater than most or any D3 program and greater than probably a lot of smaller D1 programs. So
some fan podcast or something, some random.
Yeah, some guys who think they know enough to talk about the team. So yes, I think that would be more of a draw. Again, I'm not inside the mind of a recruit.
Look,
from my perspective, I'd be more excited and drawn about just the fact that there's a lot of people watching my game and there are people who are very interested and there are people who are very proud and of what I do and representing my people, as opposed to having overtime do a video, because there are very few talents that would draw that level of attention.
Look, I want to make the case, and you could actually put it into two boxes, right? There are two boxes. There's the pride, the community box, and then there's the overtime NBA box. And I think both of those are valid boxes. There are a couple things I'm going to say. Number one, and Shua just echo some of those points, but if you want to play in front of a rabid fan base that is on its best days, I mean, even on our mediocre days, we have a bigger, just numerically speaking, should have a bigger D3 fan base than any
Number
D3
one
program,
D3
maybe
fan
even any
base,
D2
correct.
program, and bigger than some D1 programs. Like if you go down the list, we just have a rabid, massive fan base, and the total available market for the Jewish university, the premier Jewish university, is like a couple million people, right? So like you're really playing for an entire global audience, which is unbelievable. Number one. Number two, like I've had this experience. I know other people have had this experience, like walking down. I mean, I live in Teaneck, right? So like, which, you know, you're a Kodesh, but like walking down the streets of Teaneck, like you go up to kids and who will tell you with a straight face, who are my favorite players? Like last season, who are my favorite basketball players that I really look up to? Okay, Steph Curry, Giannis, and Ryan Terrell. Like people would say, like kids would say that to me with a total straight face. I remember walking by like a pickup game where I saw a kid shooting around and he did that like little weird step to the foul line that Ryan did, right? Like I've seen like yeshiva day school kids doing that. Like it's crazy. Like if you so first of all,
is there anything better, by the way, in the high school tournament, the YU tournament, in the high school tournament, than having, you know, Gabe's team,
it was
Ryan's
rad.
team, like the craziness that was going on, like this whole thing was nuts.
Nothing better than Valley.
It was amazing. It was just seeing them at their high school games, seeing them. I remember at DRS. I mean, that fan base is nuts too. But like seeing Gabe there and seeing Mrs. Turell at the DRS game, everybody going nuts. Like it was just amazing seeing YU basketball start. Like that's what you talk about, like the program, but like you go beyond program. If you get to the point of a program, then you're also impacting culture, right? And that's where you start to see those seeds really show up in culture. Like definitely the first places right around it, but now to start to see those building out to other places is so beautiful.
And now I want to hit the second box, which is like the overtime NBA box. Because here's something that I personally learned from the whole Ryan Terrell experience, which is I firmly believe that the gap between, like before Ryan, the gap between transcendent Jewish players who could play at the highest possible levels was like Tamir Goodman to Ryan Terrell. I firmly believe that we are not going to have to wait a similar amount of years to get to the next transcendent player, purely because of the entire package that came with the Ryan Terrell experience. Meaning he came to YU, he was a legend among his people. He got, I mean, like if you're the kind of person that wants to be a Ryan Terrell and you have the skills, your parents are like just like crazy enough to help you do it, right? Like if you have the whole package, you have the capacity to be that. So prior to Ryan, why would, like, if a parent's gonna invest time in making you be truly excellent at something, why invest time in this? The payoff would be like so small, right? Like so potentially small. But now Ryan has kind of shown a blueprint, which is if you're like a truly transcendent player, so and you want to get yourself on overtime, you want to get attention from NBA teams, you want to get attention from NBA scouts. I mean, unless you're like a lottery player and you're gonna go play for like North Carolina or something, your best path is this. Because at the end of the day, I don't, you can like it or hate it, but Jews being good at basketball will always be a novelty, will always be like something that some news editors like, oh, that's pretty cool and quirky. Like, we can build it up so that it doesn't seem crazy, but it's always going to be like newsworthy, like a little bit.
Exposure is always going to be there.
Yeah. So if you're like a truly transcendent player, where would you go unless you're going to be like starting five at Duke? Where would you go that you have a better path to a real professional future, possibly even in the NBA, than YU? So what Ryan has done has made it much more likely, one, that the next, the next kid who could be that will actually invest the time to do it, and B, that'll come to YU. So I think
another point that you nailed on the head is that the difference between eras in the Ryan Terrell era and the Tamir Goodman era. Tamir Goodman, we got one Sports Illustrated article and maybe one clip of him in a game, and that was it. And we knew nothing else about it. Nothing. We might have 15 interviews right now and miss 15 more on Ryan, and every game was taped, and every podcast pops up on your feed, and the overtime. You have tremendous amount of exposure directly from him, myself going on whatever, my dad going on whatever. Just like not only the process and blueprint laid out to how to be Ryan Terrell once you got to college, but how to get to Ryan Terrell when you're in 5th grade. Like what is the stuff? How did you get here? Well, this is how I got here. Ryan averaged 2 points a game in 5th grade. He was the 5th starter. He was defender, like go defend him and you wouldn't touch the ball. Like the Ryan Terrell story isn't I was born with these God-given gifts. Sure, he was not 6'2". I tell this all the time. Ryan was 5'3" in 7th grade. I was 5'10" in 7th grade. I knew I was going to be tall. Like, I don't know. We don't know about Ryan. I know he got lucky that he grew, but with that growth came all that hard work, and that's how he got there. Another point I want to nail on the head. So you have that blueprint on how to be that player. So that would shrink the time when the next transcendent player comes. So I agree with that. And then the blueprint of this team being good, being a YU and being a representative of the culture and being that influential. Like if I could look at this thing as a guy who's like OFEC religious level and be like, look at that impact. But I could also do on the same thing, the same pitch that was probably made to Zevi Samet. Look at the difference that these guys can make. You could go to Sean Abet, and you go to Israel anytime in your life, and you can be a Rebbe in Israel with a sheer anytime in your life. The amount of lives that you potentially will be able to touch as a smicha student doing great things in the basketball world for people who think I don't need to choose between being not just religious, Gabe was religious, learned smicha level guy and a star basketball player. You have the potential to do so much good in that level. So that's why I'm really excited for Zebi to be a part of it. And it is really exciting. It's an exciting.
You see those videos of again, Ryan in a boot at, camp. I forget which camp it was, whether it was Morsha or Moshava or one of the camps or Masora, but like just running with the kid. I mean, like that's really what it's about. And that representation, as you guys touched upon, is also so important, right? We talk about that in so many other spheres. The representation to then say, okay, I can see myself now, or give a kid an actual vision of what it would be like, right? 10 years from now, that's so important across many fields. It's true when it comes to Jewish athletes. It's still true, right? And that's why the quirk is still there.
We got some good questions to chat. Before we get to, I want to just shout that out. Keep putting questions in the chat. We're going to get to them. I assure you we're going to get to those because they're awesome, and super honored that D3 Direct, the legend himself on Twitter, is joining us and watching. That's amazing. Welcome. Bow, 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 bow. But first, what do we know? Because this is a question I get asked probably most often, and I imagine you guys do as well. What do we know about where Ryan's at right now?
Kind of wish we had
I'm sitting in this chair. I got a Dr. Evil chair.
Out to.
But what do we know? First of all, let's talk about what did the Portsmouth Invitational mean? Where are we looking now? Like, what do we know, guys?
So I'll give you the laydown because I have limited time since I have a playoff game in the TABC league, and I'm sorry for that. This is but Portsmouth was an amazing.
I'm gonna Jack. Do you know Ryan, by the way, for the audience? Like here,
I met him once or twice. He's kind of We're like show. Like if I called him, he'd say, "Who's this?" So when we
Jack, you talking about playoffs? Playoffs?
Let's try to win a game.
Go.
I love it. So we're here I think that's what the guy said. Maybe I blew the joke. We're at Portsmouth. The number one thing that people would say about Ryan going in was like, how would he stack up physically? Like, he could do all this stuff against D3 guys, but like, look what happened against Lambesis, even though he had 22 points on 15 shots, he had a really efficient game, whatever. Why did he stack up physically? And the first game, when we came to it, we're all there. And I swear, so Ryan doesn't have a good offensive game. He plays great defensively. He guards the quick point guards. He answers those questions that he fits in. But I swear, I felt like my dad's dog I had to hold my father from crying. He was more devastated than anyone that Ryan only had 3 points in game one. And after Ryan's kind of down, the whole family's kind of down. And Tommy Shepard of the Wizards, he said, Mrs. What do you say? Mrs. ain't nothing but a lady. He said some weird country thing. And I was like, I don't know. All right. And it came out and they said, basically you have to stand out. You can't just fit in, go out and stand out. Ryan got lucky in a sense that Cole Swindler was now in the Lakers. He hurt his ankle after the first game. He's like, I'm out. And then another guy hurt his knee and said, I'm out. This is just, this was nothing for them. It was just a nice thing to be a part of, not necessarily a showcase. So all of a sudden this spot opened up for a shooting white on player to step into a role, and he boom, and he hit the up and unders, and he did the fix. It was a lot of fun, and what it meant was
pace-off time, right? It was
the
don't we
first
say
game,
like
I think.
Matfilim Begnus, right? We start with the bad, right, and then we finish with
it was
the praise.
perfect.
So like you
And
guys live,
Pace-off story, baby.
I got to tell you, I think Ryan having that bad first game was one of the Makos. If my dad was Paro, that was really, he really took it rough. Like if you had Svardea, Ryan having an off first game, like he'd rather like let the frogs rain.
Bring the frogs in, baby.
He was like, "What's a frog?" He was having a rough, and I'm telling you that Seder was amazing. We had all these NBA heads at a table. I feel like I died and went to heaven. And then on the flip side of the table, my wife looks around like, "Oh my God, I died and went to hell." Like we're surrounded by these basketball heads. Like I'm just eating popcorn and listening and like giddy like a girl, like a schoolgirl. I'm like going crazy, and it was just such a great time.
Party Seder.
It was great.
In the
But
popcorn.
the problem was he got hurt right at the wrong time. Like, right before he had the workout with the Bucks where he shot 7 for 7 in the 5-on-5, and he shot 83% in the warm-up from 3, where the normal is like 55 to 56, which is excellent. NBA 3 is the whole thing, and then he gets hurt.
He had to guard Harrison Barnes during that workout.
He was laying up against Harrison Barnes in an agency workout, and he went in for a layup. Like he stole, and he's doing his thing. Harrison's doing his thing, and Ryan's doing his thing. And my son agrees, who is screaming in the back.
Honorary member of the ball.
Doing his thing.
So Ryan's doing his thing. Ryan steals the ball, and he goes in for a layup with Harrison chasing him, and Ryan lays it in, lands, and his foot shoots out of his shoes, Zion Williamson style, from like that Duke game a couple years ago. Explodes out. He injures his foot, and he's out for a while. And he unfortunately was just.
Suffice it to say, now that we're back, suffice it to say, the Ball Habatim are going to be all over this story. We'll have updates for you, and we're beyond excited about this. We're going to get obviously to some of the players and some of the storylines, coming up, but one thing that I think we should talk about is just let's give some love to some of the outgoing guys. Who are, not that we could start with you, but like if you're thinking, hey, here's a guy I'm just gonna miss, or here's someone I have great memories of, here's someone that I want to give a shouts to as they exit the building, as they exit the max for the last time. Who are you thinking? Like who's one guy you're like, gotta send a shout out to this guy?
You know what? I think the obvious one. Listen, there's so many players that are leaving. Obviously, the senior night was a tremendous night. I think there are two guys for me, and maybe it's because the effort play. I think for me, Max Leibowitz is definitely one of them.
That was mine
again,
too.
just have loved watching him over the years. A guy who, when he comes in, is commitment every time. One of the highlights of the season was, I think it was senior night or one of the nights where he played considerable minutes, and he put on a show. He put on a show for everybody. He hit some great shots, and he really was. It was really great to see that in the culmination. And really, I think he, just thinking back to my time, what you need to be great is you need players at practice to challenge you over and over. And I can just imagine that Max was one of those guys who were challenging people at practice, making everybody better. The other guy, even though it's short and we don't have official confirmation, but I think, he's resting up and we saw him play in the Maccabea. But Ethan Lasko brought just a different, my South Florida guy, he brought a different level of his level of intensity was just, to me, beyond anything we saw. When he came in the game, it really ratcheted up a level. The whole team ratcheted up a level. And to be honest, his performance in the final game of the season, what turned out to be the final game of the season in the tournament, kept them in the game. Honestly, without his performance, I don't think they have the opportunity towards the end of the game. The way he came in and he hit shots, played defense, made some great plays at the end. Really, Ethan brought like a new level, and I think that started the trend of maybe some guys who have touched and tasted D1 at whatever level being able to come in and not so shocking to show up in a Max uniform.
I think, by the way, so we saw, speaking of stuff that happened over Pesach, so we saw Ethan Lasko over Pesach. And I got to tell you, my daughters who play ball saw, and like Big Max fans, they saw Ethan Lasco and they were like, oh my God, like we can't talk to him. Like he doesn't have time for us. Like it was so cool to see. And I'll tell you, after we wanted to talk to him, he was the nicest guy. It was amazing.
Oh, he's a sweetheart.
Such a sweetheart. And I was sitting with my kids afterwards and asking them like, hey, what's your memory? Like, what's your fond memory of Ethan Lasco on the Max? And both of my kids said the defense, just the absolute dog mentality, the intensity. And I got to tell you, whether it was that Illinois Wesleyan game where you just had Ethan come correct with the right mindset, whether it was that last game of the tournament, as you said, Nathan, or so many times in between where you just brought him off the bench and you knew, in addition to getting the skill set, in addition to getting the, someone who could penetrate to the hoop, someone who could, lock down on D, you just were getting someone who was bringing the energy to 11. It was awesome.
And I think with some early injuries, we never saw the best E. I think we never saw the best E. That's what the shame is.
Yeah, I think we got the short end of the stick, unfortunately, with Ethan. As good as the season he had, there was the potential for that much more. If you remember the beginning of the season, this guy was leading the team in assists. He was playing nasty defense. He was like part of it. Like I remember going on the show on the broadcast and doing a halftime saying, "This is the best sixth man in the history of the Max." Like this potential. Like Elliott loves coming off the bench with some offensive force. He has a D1 weapon to come off the bench and bring a punch. And unfortunately, he got that injury in kind of a throw it away game. Unfortunately,
yeah.
And then he never. It's still hurt. He's having surgery on it in like a week. I think this week. So it never fully was, as good as he was, there was this potential. It was more of like the one that got away that was there, but like, there's just so much, more. And I love Ethan. He did it and he was incredible in that game. I think we saw in that Stockton game, like, this is what he came here for, was to make big shots and big plays and big games, because he's a big time player.
Yeah, no, I agree. And the saddest thing is, like, we saw from the beginning of the season, he was like slowly growing into like being comfortable in the system and everything. And his best game was the game he got injured. He was like in the midst of having a great game, great shooting performance. And it just seemed at the moment he got injured, he seemed like he was just gonna get stronger and stronger. And then the injury happened and it set him back seriously. So even though he was arguably one of the only players that showed up in their two biggest games, like at the big moments against IW and against Johns Hopkins, it could have been even more. And that was it was sad.
And I think part of it was, for me, I mean, we talked about it after IW, he was like the only guy who wasn't scared of either of those situations. That's the thing, is like,
I think Ryan as well.
Not because he was there. Ryan wasn't either, but again, it was expected, but also like it took Ryan a little while to figure out. He was playing against one of the best defenders in D3. And it was a tough game. He still got his, but it was a tough game. But really, Ethan came out and just you didn't see any nerves. You didn't see anything. That happened in both games. I think that to adopt that mentality, I hope that sort of translated into the locker room. And I think that's what having guys who have played not just at that level in college or that higher level in college, but even in high school, right? If you're playing against that talent in high school and you have those games happening at the high school level, which for all intents and purposes, again, I love the Yeshiva League and what it brings, but it's not. You're not playing against the best talent you're ever going to see on a nightly basis. And I think some of these kids are playing against really top talent, and I think that it prepares them for when they go into that tough game, which eventually they get to. Right? It's not a knock. It's just it takes a little while to transition.
Yeah, I was watching. We'll get touch on this later, but I was watching some of Daniel Marguse's games, and obviously in his one game against forget the team name, Bronny James team, but I strongly believe that was probably
the flex for our team, by the way,
the toughest competition better than any competition I'll face in college. And that's no slight to D3. These guys are all like top D1 recruits in their senior year or junior year.
Should we talk some incoming players and just talk
and
some
by the way,
we had a question on the chat as well.
Yeah, I want to shout out from our good buddy and D3 Legend, D3 Direct, which player will be a contributor for the Max by season's end that no one is talking about right now?
So let's start with the guys, Shua, that everyone is talking about, and maybe we'll be able to get ourselves down to a couple players here. I think because, like we said, there's a lot of talent on this team, and it's going to be interesting to see how things go, where the minutes go.
So, but like, you know what? I actually think we can start with anyone because like we've been talking
like wider D3 or like
no, I think like
fanatics.
No, I'm saying I think like we can even start with just like any. I mean, there's no max other than like OFEC and people that everyone knows. Like, who's going to be a max contributor? Like, no one. I mean, no one's in our WhatsApp group, right? So like no one knows any of the names that we could throw out right now. So like, just who is someone who will be a big contributor on the max other than say OFEC? Like, who's someone who will just be a big contributor for the max starting out that we could shout out maybe?
Well, I think Max Zakheim will be a strong contributor early on. He obviously was at Bryant last year. Didn't get the minutes that he had been promised or expected because Bryant ended up with a lot of good kids. So, but he's a very good player. He had the talent to get recruited to Bryant. He played in a very strong prep school, I guess, like that after he graduated from Frisch in 2021. So I think Max will be a big contributor early. I think Zevi Samet, I think, will be a big contributor early. His shooting ability is just, it's next level, and that can contribute even as he gets more comfortable in the system. Being a great shooter can just allow for contribution, even if some of the rest of the game remains a little raw.
We talk about Jacob Roden for a second and some of the things that we saw, because like again, there was, while we had an off season, it feels like some of the players didn't with the Maccabi and the tremendous representation there from a number of different countries. Obviously, shouts to the U.S. and our boys, OFEC and E who took it home. But Jacob, he was pretty otherworldly there.
Yeah, I think he showed a maturity level beyond his years. He had a good handle. He hit a lot of threes from pretty deep many of the times. He showed the ability to kind of put the team on his shoulder when there wasn't really much offense being generated outside of him, and he was it was known that he was the primary threat. So I was very impressed with Jacob. I also am very impressed with his ability to see the floor. He makes some reads that are very impressive for a kid his age. So I'm excited. I think he's a bit raw, but I'm very excited for his potential especially in the max system. I think it fits his game very well.
If you guys, I'm actually curious about this because I genuinely don't know the answer. Like, who's our starting five on day one?
Do any of us know the answer?
I mean, we don't know. We don't know. But like, if we had to put out just five guys on the floor, right? Who could plausibly be a starting five? Who's our starting five? To be honest, I don't even know. I
think, and again, I'm not going to take a guess at the starting five right now because I think this is true. Like, I'll tell you OFEC, right? I'll tell you Matan.
Seems like a lock.
I'll tell you it's pretty likely. If I had to take a third lock, right, I would say Margusov. But like, other than that, I think everybody, like there are probably 4 or 5 guys who could. I really think it's like one of those situations, right, where you're going to training camp where it's actually an open competition. And tell you the truth, with the shooting ability, I think that the two major concerns, right, coming out to the off season before knowing any recruits or anything, and sure there may have been others, and I think you're more in tune with this, but to me was going to be the ability, right, when you look at OFEC and Matan, I don't think you're looking at either one of those guys as running as two things. One, the running the motion offense in totality, right, and really having that being able to be sort of that floor general, right. It could be OFEC potentially could, but you'd rather have him play where his strengths are. And then the other side was height, right? Those were the two things coming off. Is like who's gonna really, like, how's the motion offense gonna fit with this new crop? We didn't know who it was yet, and the height of the team. And I think like That's why it really is an open competition to me to see where they go with, depending on how practice goes and how the motion offense goes and who gets it, or who understands it and who can contribute right away. And who Elliot, like you said, like I think Jack mentioned, you always want something to come off the bench to be able to sort of like, instinct. You saw that with Matan, right? Much better in a lot of ways coming off the bench, just feeling energy, like bringing energy right away. Sometimes than in the starting role. And the same thing happened, I think, with Jordan when he switched and came off the bench, right? You saw that energy and that pressure not be there. So I think we're really going to see a little bit of that play out over practice. But Shu, I'm curious to your thoughts.
Yes, I generally agree. I could throw in my mind, most likely, just based on what I know today, the most likely starting five, which could be totally wrong. And obviously, I have no idea. I won't be seeing the practices, so I don't know what will ultimately happen. But I guess it would be Max, Zevi, Ofek, Matan, Margusa. With potentially Bardichev, Rodin as potential starting five in place of those. Those are like that, but that's my guess for what would be starting five. Now it's relatively small, especially it's like a 3-guard heavy, 3 guards, and then like Matan is like 6'4", and Daniel Margusa was like 6'6", but so they might go bigger, especially against like IW early in the season. But that's my guess for the starting five.
It's like so cool. Like this is so crazy. We haven't been here in several seasons where we're like the possibilities are wide open, a ton of raw talent. We're gonna get to see it develop. Like we'll probably, I mean, it's not gonna be the same polished product that we were used to from last season, where we're just going and we know what to expect and we just have that high degree of confidence. Not only that will win the games, but how we'll win the games. This is just going to be a wild ride, and it's really exciting from that perspective. I mean, guys who are going to be coming up, later on the episode. Like we have guys who just you watch their highlights. Like Zevi Steinmetz is a really good example, by the way. I remember I didn't even know who Zevi was until we kind of had our eyes on what's his name, Yogi Olif. I don't know how to pronounce the last name.
Olaf, yeah.
Olaf. We had our eyes on that. He ends up going to Wash U, right? Wasting an opportunity as far as I'm concerned, but we wish him obviously.
Shout out to Mayer's dad.
They got a stud.
I know, so unreal. What a steal! Oh my god, that was quite a Sean Olive recruit for them. Good shouts to them. But I remember when we had our eye on him. I remember like watching some like tournament that he had been in that he had played in Chicago, where TABC happened to be playing there also. And I remember we kind of, or at least I am starting to watch these clips, and we're slowly starting to see, hey, there's this kid on TBC who's like smoking him in this game and just pulling up shot after shot after shot, and not just pulling up, like getting penetration, making nice passes. And I remember asking someone on the WhatsApp, like, or maybe even someone pointed it out. It may have been Yeshua, like, hey, here's this kid, by the way, you should also keep an eye on him. And it was kind of exciting to see, like, this kind of homegrown yeshiva day school kid who just shooting the lights out on a relatively big stage, like this invitational tournament where you're playing against this D3 prospect. It's pretty exciting to see. So you have all these kids with ceiling high potential, and we're gonna find out what we have. It's gonna take a bunch of games, but we're gonna be able to find out what we have with some of this really, really raw talent. And I don't remember feeling this kind of excitement last season. What I felt last season was more, anticipation, even some anxiety because I thought we were too highly ranked. But I don't remember feeling this sense of like, what are we going to find out? Like, so what's going to surprise us this season? And that's a pretty cool thing to add into the mix. Yeah.
And I think also last time, I remember starting the season feeling like there was something lost. I remember the players talking about it. I remember the fans talking about it, right? Meaning like a season was taken away, not just the way it ended in the Sweet 16, but even the next year with these guys still playing at a high level and performing. That we're talking about, right? A team that really had a lot still left to prove it, never got a chance to be there. And I think really this, even though it's carrying over, right? Obviously we have Ofek, Matan, and others that are going to carry over on the team. it really feels like, as Jack said, a clean slate, right? It really feels like, we'll be able to start, right, and just see what develops in this team. And it's not a one and done, right? In the sense that most of these players are going to be able to develop over a few years.
Yeah, I think another thing we discussed, I've gone back and forth with Ariel on this a lot, is that like last season was weird in that like most of their games, we expected them to blow out their opponent. So if they didn't blow out their opponent, we were frustrated. And when they did, it was just expected. And then like the couple of big games they had, for the most part, they didn't win. So it was like that like level of expectation for most of their games was kind of made the season like Ari said, like it was more frustrating than fun. Yeah, obviously there was a lot to be excited about and everything, but there was also that aspect of like the expectation kind of was like made it like for a frustrating viewing experience from our perspective. Obviously nothing to do with the players, it was our fault as fans. But this year, and kind of like it harkens back to like 2017, 18, 19 in the Skyline, which were amazing seasons in terms of just the competition and the excitement around a lot of games, where there were a lot of games that were like, okay, what can YU win? Will they win? And they were close and back and forth, and a lot of them near the buzzer, at the buzzer finishes. And so I'm very excited. I'm both excited for the unknown, kind of like not knowing really what to expect, but also excited for us not to be expecting just a blowout in every one of their conference games, us expecting like a real like battle and certain rivalries to really be rivalries more than like just like little kid brother to an extent.
I think it's a good point. It echoes my biggest concern sort of about the fans. And I guess I'm going to sound like a synagogue president, talking to the backyard minyanim post-COVID, which is like, come back. Like I'm afraid that the people aren't going to show up, right? Like, oh, we had like, even though we talked about the pressure, the spectacle, all those things, that is what drew a lot of people in. I mean, those lines on that IW game were nuts, right? And I'm not saying it's going to get to that level, but it would be a shame if, as a fan base, as a student population, right, and everybody else who made those treks out, take that and build on it. Come back, come out there, bring the kids. Like, the kids don't like, yeah, I get it. Ryan's not there, Gabe's not there, but bring people out and build that with this new crop. You get really attached once you're there. If you sit there and say, yeah, it's not for me until we get on that 20-game winning streak, you're never going to get there. And I would implore the fans. That's my major concern is, are we going to see the fan base treating the team, in a similar fashion? I know it's not going to be at the peak of that, but can we get people in the building? Can we make sure that fan base and the student base really comes out and supports it?
That's where I think the transition from good team to good program is so critical, because what got us to where we were was obviously the Ryan Terrell factor, the fact that we had NBA scouts watching us. Like that was an important part of it, but that was also like, that was almost like the crown jewel. It was almost the cherry on top. What I think was exciting, and by the way, the reason, the backstory behind the easiest, I don't know how much you guys bet, but the easiest money Natan ever won was, betting.
That was food, but yeah, even better.
Right. The easiest meal at Golan that you ever won was betting against Poppers on the numbers for the tournament game. But winning the Skyline tournament was a hugely watched game, and people weren't watching that Skyline tournament. Like the first time we won the Skyline, right? I think it was the first time we won the Skyline. That game did apparently huge numbers. People weren't watching that game because, Mark Lasser from the Bucks was there. People weren't watching that game because, Ryan might get drafted. People were watching that game because we had an excellent basketball team. Ryan was part of it. Gabe was part of it. But we had an excellent basketball team that was winning the conference. And we're absolutely going to be in that conversation again. And people will be able to grow with this team. Like our baseline expectations as a fan base are higher, which is why I'm hopeful and confident, at least, that fans are really going to give this a chance. And I think it's on these players to kind of bring us along. I mean, to bring us along for a ride. We're going to be there cheering, but there's a golden opportunity to keep this fan base engaged. And I think they're up to it. I really do.
Being a good program, I think just underscore, like being a good program is counting on the fans, the students, the alumni, right? It's counting on everybody. If that's something that people want, right? It's not just the players, right? And the coaches that have to bring that. It's really, and the school itself. And I think, I'll say it because he's not on right now. But getting someone like Jack to focus on, right, alumni and to focus on the activities that he's planning. He's got a huge, shout out to a huge basketball tournament, 3-on-3 tournament that's going to take place, August 28th, in I think 3 weeks from yesterday at YU, with tremendous. And again, players and fans and others, and barbecue and music, and it's going to be tremendous. Like, that's what you need. You need to engage. You have an audience that was just really engaged over the past 3 years. And if you let that slip away, because you're waiting for the product on the court to do it, it's not a one-way street. But don't wait for that, right? Get them in the building so they can see the product there. Jews tend to have short memories when it comes to things that entertain us or whatever it is. I'll catch it, whatever. I'll watch it at a different time, or I'll get the next one. Or I heard that cheer before. Whatever it is, it's just get excited, get engaged, and keep that level of excitement. I really think about the kid. I mean, like you talked about it earlier, Ari, but like, whether it was my kids, your kids, all the kids that we saw there, the way, perm costumes and everything, that is just tremendous, right? Seeing the camps at the schools, that is amazing. And that doesn't just need a player that may, end up going to a pro league. It really can happen with just a vibrant community. We saw that across the other D3 schools. And I really think that's where we hit the program, is if we can buy in across all those 10 poles.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like to give one example, my 6-year-old nephew always asks my brother, like, when's Jewish basketball coming back on? He doesn't ask about a specific player. He's just
never left, baby.
Yeah, he wants to see the YU team.
By the way, just really quickly, shouts to Mickey MCR, whose name we will pronounce differently every single time we say it throughout this entire season.
Big Meiser.
Count it, my man. The most important thing this season will be defense. The truth is, I'll tell you, and then I want to get back to your point, but like, I'll tell you, not having like an obvious number one scoring option, like, it's a cool thing to be able to say, okay, what's our identity going to be? Like, it might be just like a really good defensive team. That could be part of it too. I mean, we have the chops to do, Zevi can shoot the lights out. We have, we'll talk about them later, but you guys know better than I do. But like, we'll have kids who can get to the hoop, and Ofek is coming back, hopefully with even more confidence after the Maccabiah win. But like, seeing our team kind of get back the fundamentals, that could be a cool part of our defense. So shouts to
you might see guys like, again, we didn't talk about it from a starting standpoint, but that's where you have guys like Roy Ikevici, or again, I'm sure we'll get pronunciations correct as these things go on, but again, really lanky.
I'm so excited to learn these guys' names. That's really what I want.
Really lanky. You got, by the way, you got to know the pronunciation for the rhymes, the intros. It's really important. So we got to get some experts here when we get into it. But I think there are going to be some guys that you might see more traditional on the standpoint of, because we saw, I know we talked about the other competition and Jack, Max are number one, they're the favorite. There's some really good individual talent in the Skyline. We saw that on display last year. We saw that in St. Joe's, Long Island. We saw that in Farmingdale. We saw that everywhere. You're going to have to shut them down. And I'm not sure. We haven't seen. We don't know, right? The highlight tapes are all offense, right? We don't really see the defense of a lot of these players. So I think they're going to establish their reputation and figure out, both in terms of the scheme, but also individually, how to be able to play with some of these stars.
Yeah. I don't know how much I agree to an extent, but one of the things that's forgotten about last season, or people didn't even realize while it was happening, YU's defense, when you look at it from like an opponent adjusted efficiency, like points per possession adjusted for quality of opponent, they were the best YU's ever had, but also they were a lot higher ranked in that than YU's offense was ranked in the same metric. I think they were like 23rd or something on defense, and like in the 70s or 80s offensively. So like, a lot of people spend time focusing on like the motion offense, but it was YU's defense last year that actually was the stronger side of their team. And like if you think about the Johns Hopkins game, they gave up 64 points. They didn't give up a lot of points.
Well, you're also talking about losing one of the probably the best defender, I think, in YU history, in Gabe Leifer. I really think, again, the way Gabe played defense, again, and started the whole team going is huge. So that is a factor, right? Obviously, a big factor. I also wonder. I mean, and again, it's hard to know when you may see this in the numbers, but how much does it matter if the team comes into the gym thinking we have to score 90 points to be able to win this game against a YU explosive offense versus coming in this year and knowing they can win games potentially in the 75, in the 70 range, shot selection, right? That offensive efficiency coming into play. I wonder whether that's effective or not, or blowout games, right? Trying to score a bunch of points at most because you're down double digits. But definitely the defense was fantastic and really fantastic in stretches. Like I remember the stretch towards the end of the season where they were really like lockdown the entire Skyline tournament and 2-3 games before that
was
unreal, like really locked down. What did they not score for like 12 minutes? It was like unreal.
Yeah.
I don't know, they had basketball for like 8 minutes. It was unbelievable. So there were lockdown times. So I'm not taking anything away from the defense, but wonder how much that is the scheme versus individual talent, right? Really putting out, like we talked about, the intensity.
By the way, that reminds me, I want to shout out one more guy who is outgoing, and that is the bun himself, Jordan Armstrong. I think we just got to see him coming into his own as the season was coming to an end. I mean, he was like a block machine as the season came.
There was that one game where he had like 8 to 10. I mean, they didn't even count all the blocks. Like I was in the sideline, I counted like.
I remember you were texting.
That was the away game.
I think they counted 8. I really think he had 12. It was unreal. Yeah,
it was out of control. And
also, his effect on the St. Joseph's Connecticut game, that was incredible. His effect. He totally shut down their drives into the lane.
That was one of the better games of the year. I mean, I love that game because again, I think if I remember correctly, down at the half, right? If I remember correctly, down at the half, a lot of points in the paint given up, right? Layups, given up on penetration, and that whole second half was just a complete change.
Now, here's one thing I'm very concerned about as we get ready to welcome on a guest. One thing I'm very concerned about is last season we had maybe the best hair game in D3. We had Ryan Terrell, floppy Ryan Terrell. We had Ofek, who was basically growing a cauliflower farm on his head. Baruch Hashem, we loved it. We had Jordan Armstrong with an absolute black market Jewish hairdo. Like they don't standard issue that bad boy. I have some real concerns about our team's ability to keep up this year, and I don't know who's bringing the heat, but these guys really have a lot of some big ponytail holders to fill. Let me put it that way.
I already know what they say: hair today, gone tomorrow. So it's
oh my God.
Sorry, I'm still a dad. I can't help it.
You'll see yourself
loud on the phone.
Cut it. No, cut it. Don't.
Cut that. Cut
it. My daughters will kill me. Anyways, I want
to. You have a Ryan Terrell spoiler we can throw out to cover that up.
I want to make sure I reference, by the way, because I think I missed when we talked about the fans and the big thing, and we don't have to go into it. I'm really excited for our first guest.
Ariel Adler, by the way, Roden and Itzkavicki have some high potential hair. That is good information. See, that's why we need the chat. I love it. Unbelievable.
I think maybe he needs to make a guest appearance. That's what I think.
Yeah, come on, let's go.
Get on the show. But I really want to shout out the families. I mean, we had really blessed to have some of the way in which the families embraced the team and showed up game in and game out. Yeah. The fans at the families at the away games. Really remiss if we don't call out the families that were also, like we talked about players leaving. We're losing a lot of quality families that came with those players. It's going to be hard to replace, and we really think. And again, these are a lot of, I think, kids from outside New York, New Jersey, drivable distance potentially. It's just going to be that's what we need the fan base even more. So shout out to the families who really graced the Max Stern over the past couple of years.
Yeah, it's an extension of the Kiddush Hashem, as Jack was saying before, the Kiddush Hashem that the players are capable of making. The families really help extend that. The fans help extend it, both in the gym, on Twitter, on social media, at away games. But the families are really an important part of that. So it's Much love. Really an incredible amount of respect. Did an extraordinary job, and we love him so much. Wow. Unreal. So we have coming up, and stick around because we have coming up now our first guest of the season. And I got to tell you, this is the first time I'm seeing this person. We just talked about our concerns for the hair game that our beloved YU Macs are going to have going into the season, and I see that my concerns were unfounded. We have the honor, the absolute privilege to welcome on one of the newest Macs recruits that I am the most excited about. He's the Hunchback of Notre Dame, aka the Goose is Loose, aka McGillis Goose, the kid for whom I'm beyond excited to come up with better nicknames for. He's Daniel Margusa. Let's go!
Thank you.
Welcome, Daniel.
Thank you.
I love how the palm trees go really well with the hair. Like, this is a great setup. I love it.
It just looks so good.
Thank you.
On the Ball Habatim. That's a flex. I like that. Well, Daniel, welcome to the Ball Habatim. Welcome to the Rabid fan base. We are so excited that you're here. Like, what's your first thoughts now that you are officially part of Max Nation?
Yeah, I'm really excited. It's going to be a great experience. Going to be like a great one for 4 years. I'm just excited to be here.
Unreal. Okay.
This is like kind of like a get to know you kind of segment. So where are you coming from? Where are you right now? Like, where are you
I'm from
taking this
LA.
from?
LA, the Valley.
LA, we've had a little bit of success, from some LA kids.
Yeah, a little bit.
Coming on.
Yeah.
Dodgers fan?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Amazing. So, okay, what's your first encounter with the Macs? Like, when did the Macs first come onto your radar?
So I used to work out with Ryan Terrell. Like, we used to work out together. Yeah. And then I talked to him. He told me about like his school that he goes to, and I'm like, yeah, sounds interesting. He asked me like all these questions. He gave me the coach's phone number. We talked a little bit, then just did some research, and I really liked it.
So like list like some of like your thoughts of like what excited you about the program, like what really got you like convinced that this was something that was the right option for you?
Yeah. So like the culture and like in general, it's just like an unreal setting to be in, unlike other schools like I could have went to. It's like this is the best one by far. Like just the setting, the culture, like always like the fans are there. They're just like unreal. Like the atmosphere in the gym, it's just like one of the best.
So have you been to a Max game? Have you watched a Max game? Like, when were you first like, oh my God, this fan base is out of control?
I saw clips. I watched the game like online, like on a stream. I never went to one. I wish I did, but it's like across the country, so it was a little hard to go.
Well, you're not flying like a 6.5 hour flight to go to the Max. Okay.
You might have trouble, fitting into Brad Turell's, on carry on, but whatever.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out.
With the hair alone, you need a gate check. I love it.
Yeah. So I watched a stream. I saw like the energy. I saw the clips. It was unreal.
Unbelievable. So as you're coming in, you know about the motion offense, about the attention that the team has gotten in the past, these last couple of years.
Yeah.
That you're also, but at the same time, so there's a whole identity and there's a whole hype around the team. But at the same time, as we were talking about earlier in the episode, you're coming in with a lot of guys who are young, hungry, just have a ton of talent. I mean, this is more talent in a recruiting class than we've ever had, probably. And so what are your thoughts coming into training?
Yeah. So my first thought is go in there, compete with everyone, like go at everyone. Like obviously we're teammates, go at it in a like good like manner and fashion. Like I'm trying to like earn myself a spot. Like it's first impression always matters. So I have to like go in there and just do my thing.
What's like coming from, again, from a high school standpoint, like what, again, when did you start playing? When did you like give a little taste of like, what do you love about the game? Like talk to us about, everything before you got here.
So I started playing like a little bit in middle school, but when I really like started training and everything was my freshman year. And I was like, it was like my freshman year, I was still like shooting with two hands. So I was like, come a long way from that, obviously. And then I just like fell in love, like just like working out, just playing with like just playing, and then I'd get up like at 5 a.m. every day, like before school, just to work out, because like it was like tough. And then like when COVID hit, it was like even just more tough to find a gym to go to, but like I still managed to do it. That's when I really like got like to train with Ryan. So yeah, it was great. It was great.
So that was during your like sophomore year, right? When sort of
Sophomore and junior year.
was sophomore year basically like wiped out, or how did it play out?
It was,
you were like in the middle of the season, right? Or
yeah.
around there?
So it was. I finished my sophomore season. I was on JV my freshman and sophomore year. I was at Crespi High School, and I transferred after my sophomore year because we finished in like March. Like we went online, and then going into junior year, we didn't know if we were gonna have a season or not. And then like late in March, we just had a season. We went back in person in school, like hybrid. And then I like played like here and there. I wasn't playing that much. And then my senior year, like it was all in person. I started every game. It was great.
When did the college college basketball, right? Like when did that, I'm going to play college basketball. Like was that one of the goals from the beginning?
That was always my goal.
Realized it at some point, like when did you feel like this is a reality, right? Like it's past the goal, like I'm there.
That was always my goal. That's what that's what I was striving for. I'm like, if I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna do it to the best of my ability. Like no reason to like do anything like halfway. Might as well just go as hard as I can. And then I'm able to play college basketball now. So yeah.
What's a challenge that you're looking forward to tackling now that you have a potential opportunity to play a big role on a team like this?
Yeah, so at Notre Dame, I was with two other great players that were like mostly like the main guys. So that was like my role was completely different than what I'm like trying to aim for like right now. So it's like a little different. But like during these summer runs, I've been training, I've been playing, and then like I've been able to like adjust my game to how I feel like I need to play to like be an impact.
Amazing.
So, yeah. I've seen some of your high school games. So it seemed like a lot of time you were played at kind of like, I don't know if I'd call it the five, but like the guy who was like the big man in terms of like playing down low on the block. I was impressed with your quick trigger and like you were never afraid to let it go.
Yeah.
What do you consider yourself in terms of like a position, or I don't even need to do the 1 through 5, like a wing, a big.
I feel like I'm more of a wing. Like the thing that I'm best at is shooting. Like I don't have like any fear like of missing. I don't care if I miss. Like I always think that the next one's going in no matter what. And obviously if you've seen some of my clips, I don't care like where it's from. If I'm open like even a little bit, I'm just gonna shoot it.
Yeah, I liked it.
Salivating over some of that.
Luckily, that plays at all levels, right? As long as you can be consistent with it, that plays at all levels. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, big wings have done well on the max the last couple of years, so that's pretty exciting.
Some good stuff in the offense. We know is built for that, right? Is really going to be. And we're really excited to see how the pieces.
Biggest who can shoot will get a lot of times teams like to guard us by keeping a guy just like in the restricted area the entire game. So if you're the big and you can just let it fly, you'll have a lot of open shots.
Yeah.
So from a personal side,
go ahead.
Go ahead, Eric.
I was gonna say, do you know anything yet about some of the guys you'll be playing with?
I've been talking like with my roommates and incoming freshmen. I've been talking to them, and then I trained with Gabe a little bit in the summer. Train a little bit with him. That's all pretty much.
That's awesome. And what are some of the things sort of like on your New York list? You've been to New York before? You spent time there, or like what's?
No, I like when I went up to visit, I was there for just like not even an entire day. I just went to visit and then flew back the same day.
So what do you have? Like what are people telling you got to do? What are some of the recommendations? What are some of the things? We'll happily coach you.
So, my sister, when she's going to New York with me, and she has an entire list of the things she wants to do, like when she's there. So we're gonna do all of that, and then I want to go to like a Mets Yankees game. That's like what I really want to do.
Now we're talking. Now we're
Yeah.
talking.
Well, listen, you're gonna be up there at the time of year where you're gonna probably have both teams in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Which is gonna be kind of nice. The city's gonna be definitely buzzing with the football teams might be out of the playoffs already by then, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But it's definitely, again, you're coming to I think it's a beautiful thing. And I know that a lot of folks, when I played on the team, we took advantage of it too, coming from Florida, where I was from. It's a sports city. It really is. And if you love sports, you really get a good taste and flavor from across the board. Sometimes you have to go to Jersey, unfortunately, because the New York teams will say they're from New York, but they play in Jersey. You'll learn about it. But it's awesome. And I think you're going to get a good flavor for that. So keep making that bucket list, and I guarantee you're going to hit all of them.
Yeah.
So can I ask you a question? What does it mean to you to be able to come onto a team where the fan base really isn't just like, your local school? When this team is firing all cylinders, it's like the global Jewish population. Like, you're playing for people. What have you thought about that at all? I know it's a lot to put on.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, I've experienced some of it. Like, I've been went to a yoga land a couple of weeks ago, and like some of the workers there, they're talking to me about it. And then a bunch of people in the gym, they always come up to me and ask me if I'm going to YU. It's just it's crazy. It feels great. It's a great experience. It's great.
It really is amazing. And one of the things that we've kind of seen on games that we've watching is a regular thing that I recall from broadcasts, that away broadcasts of games that we did last year, is basically every game the opposing team's announcer would shout out something like, "This is the most watched game we've had in program history," because every Jew in the world is tuning in to watch. It's pretty amazing. It really is. So I mean, as you're thinking about, have you thought about, motion offense, how you would fit into a scheme like that? Have you thought about that at all?
Yeah, I feel that would help my play style the best, because for me, moving without the ball, getting screens without the ball, I feel that's where I strive. That's perfect for me. I feel that was another thing that helped my decision. I watched the game. I saw how the offense wasn't just stagnant. So yeah.
So you're gonna see. I know the offensive side is where we focus, but one of those things is going to be defensive presence, right? And if you train with Gabe, I'm sure he may have talked a little bit about that. You're not going to look around and see a lot of guys on your own side, right, with the same height and wingspan. So what are you thinking about when it comes to defense? What do you pride yourself on the defensive side of the ball?
I feel just being able to lock, I'm not letting, my goal is to not let my man score and always just be in the right spot, and help defense. So I'm just always be active. Just always, yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, we're very excited to see your development and your joining the program and what that looks like, having you in the motion office.
Yeah,
and really, you got to. I'm sure the schedule. You may have not looked at the schedule or even know what it is, but does the Illinois Wesleyan game, right? That's coming up early. Is that something that anybody's talking about yet or thinking about yet? It's a cool environment. I mean, really, it's a new environment for YU as a program. We talked about a lot of the program changes that we're experiencing. Is that something on your radar? Do you think about sort of the broader D3 community?
Yeah, I've been looking over the schedule. Just seeing highlighting games where they're obviously bigger than some others. It's that's top tier right there. So very excited for that. It's gonna be different than what I've experienced before. So I'm happy.
That's pretty amazing. And so I guess last question before we let you go, because we have a full season of basketball prepared and we're so excited for. We're excited for this to be your first appearance, not your last. Last question before we let you go, is there a message that if you're speaking to Max fans now who are watching now, who are going to watch this later, this is, the hottest platform in D3 sports. So is there a message out there for Max fans that you could deliver?
You guys are going to see all about me the entire year. Don't want to I'm going to be that guy that you guys know. That's what I want to be. Yeah.
That's awesome. Speaking of which, so where do we, before we let you go, where do we follow you? Right? Any social handles that you want to shout out so people can get ready for the love? I know, I'm sure you'll have your parameters and your conversations with coach, but I think, that's the one thing about YU is that especially the kids we talked about before, the kids that really get into it, they just look up to the players. They want to know everything about them. So where do they hear, see, follow you from a social perspective?
My Instagram is Daniel.Margasov. That's I don't have Twitter or anything yet.
It's Margasov, man. That really ruins all my Goose themed nicknames. All right, okay, so we'll work with that. We could do it. We were joking before that like part of the fun of this season is to be learning everyone's name. We're really excited.
If it's not too sensitive a topic, I think we're going to see some Margasov cocktails being thrown all season long. So,
oh my God, I'm so excited. Oh my God, Margasov cocktail. Count it. That was amazing.
But
Daniel Margasov.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
We're so psyched to watch you play.
Supporting you and doing it.
Of course. Thank you.
So psyched to watch you play. So psyched to bring you to the Jewish people. Let's do this. Oh my God. Let's rock and roll. Of
course. Have a good night, guys.
We'll talk more soon. See you in New York.
Yep.
Oh, Margasov cocktail. That was good. That was really good. Unbelievable. Wow. Okay.
What do we say?
Rolling right along.
We go from strength to strength, right? We're supposed to go from
Yeah, this is pretty rad. We are super excited to welcome on one of our newest recruits, someone that we are unbelievably excited about. He's the Dian of D1, aka Max Live, aka Frish's Cold Seltzer. He's the one, the only Max Zackheim. Max, we're really excited for you to be here. Welcome to the Ball Habatim.
I'm excited. Thanks for having me on. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh man, this is pretty rad. So Max, this is the first season where we're going to be able to see you as Max fans, but people have watched, people may remember you from Frisch. People have watched you play in the scene before. What is it like to go from playing Yeshiva high school ball to playing college ball and now being able to play for the Max?
I think it's gonna be really cool. Like, coming from a yeshiva high school background, like I know what it's like. I know people, and I know so many people that are gonna be coming to games, stuff like that. So I think that's gonna be really cool. And I think a big thing could be taking things that I've learned and from high levels of basketball and being able to bring it to our team that we can hopefully have a successful year.
Unbelievable. So you're coming into a team, and we just talked to Daniel Margasov, fellow recruit of yours, and we're also super, super excited about. You're coming into a team, where last year they've been together for 4 years. There's this really strong identity. Everyone kind of knows what to expect or how to expect it. Whereas this year, and we were talking about this early in the episode, we haven't felt this excitement around the Max team before, where anything is possible, anything can happen. This is probably the most talented recruiting class that the Max have ever had. What is it like coming into training, knowing that there's this? I mean, just no one knows what the ceiling is. What's that like?
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited, and I think the Max fans should be excited. I mean, I think we have a lot of young guys, especially that we could be together now for at least 2-3 years to come, and build something like they had the past couple of years. And I think, I mean, we're a lot of young kids coming in and looking to have big roles, and I think that we can be at the top of our conference and even compete for wins in the NCAA tournament. So I think it's going to be an exciting year. I'm excited for it. So I think it should be good.
What are some of the things, Max, that people are going to notice about you right away, right? In the first couple games, things that they'll see, things that you would say are your sort of trademarks on either side of the ball?
I'm just going to be someone that's just going to play his hardest every second of the game, just trying to get guys involved, move the ball, push the pace, get up in guys' grill, and just really just play a fun, fast pace of basketball. That's how I love to play. So
one of our favorite players, and we were talking about him earlier in the episode, one of our favorite players from last season of Max basketball, also a D1 transfer, Ethan Lasko. He brought this level of intensity that, you could see that, you could see that D1 experience, just a level of intensity, focus, revved up, a sense of being revved up every game. Is that the kind of thing that you can bring to this team, just that being locked in?
Yeah, I think for sure. I mean, what I've learned, from being at Bryant this past year. I mean, every day was a dogfight in practice. Every single day, people were going at each other's necks. People were people were hitting. People were throwing ball. Like every day was just a dogfight. So I think, I've learned a lot from that. I wasn't even prepared for that coming in. I was coming in just like quiet, all that, just playing my hardest, that and like stuff like that. And then after months and months, I mean, I was getting into people and stuff like that. It was just the atmosphere and the culture there. So I think it's a big important thing to be able to bring over to YU, that just that edge that we had, that I've learned to have.
I know you made this this decision obviously a little while ago, or at least in the past couple of months. What are some of the things that your family or friends are excited about? What are the things they're talking to you about, or things that they're mentioning to you about? Sort of
I know my family for sure is excited that I'm much closer, so they can come watch me play. That's a big thing. That's my family and friends. I mean, we had a couple games in the New York area this past year, but most of them not so local. So that's a big thing. But I mean, people, I think, my friends' family, they're just excited to see me play again, just playing, running up and down, having a good time. So that should be good.
That's awesome. I'm sure you're going to get some, as a proud Frisch parent now with a daughter just finished 9th grade. I'm sure Frisch will be, super excited and hopefully bring the fan base out too. There's some, again, you're gonna love the fan base at YU. We were talking about.
I've heard
it's pretty intense.
I'm excited.
So what were some of the things that convinced you from like a basketball perspective that YU was the right option for you for your career?
I think a couple things. One, definitely just how the program has grown and how good they are and how much they'll keep getting better. Just, I mean, winning ultimately brings more and more talent. That's just how you kind of build it up. Two, I think Coach Steinmetz is a great coach, and he's reached out to me in high school, reached out to me right when I went to the transfer portal. And he just kind of made me feel like I can really succeed there, and that I'll have a great time on and off the court. And then also, those are the main two things, I think. So those two.
And I know we talked to Daniel about this a little bit. Have you been able to talk or connect with any of your, teammates? Obviously, it's like so many new faces. And people in the New York area, maybe, or others that are sort of, available at their time.
So, I mean, I've talked to a couple. I mean, I don't know personally yet a lot of my new teammates. I played in a tournament last weekend in Deal, and I was talking with Oren Batesh and Matan Zucker. So I was hanging out with them. But I have not met. I've talked to a couple people, but I have not met most of these people. So I'm excited to get up on campus and start hooping.
Day one of training. What's your mindset? What do you want your teammates to know about you going in?
Like I said before, just someone that's just going to come bring it every single day. Someone that's just going to look to get guys involved, push the pace, really just have a good time. And just be more vocal. I'm going to try and help guys. I'm gonna be learning the offense, the special YU offense, but hopefully I can learn that quick and be able to be a leader in it. So I'm excited for that.
From a fan standpoint, and not to put anyone on the spot right now, but we're having some big shoes to fill with Mrs. Turell, not being or maybe not being. I mean, listen, I would be surprised if she still shows up in the stands, to be honest. But probably not as much. Are we going to see anybody from the Zachheim clan sort of? If you're expecting someone that everybody's going to know is in the gym, who is it that's going to be in the stands that will make their presence felt?
Who's your craziest, most lovable relative?
I don't think I have somebody that's going to be that outgoing like that. I mean, my dad will probably be at every game, but he's more of he'll mumble stuff under his breath and do that type of stuff.
Classic Jewish fan. Got it.
Yeah.
We got to get Mr. Zach mic'd up. That's it. That's agenda number one.
I'll go like that a lot, hit the knee, but no one pumping up the crowd. I don't know if I could bring that.
What is it like? I mean, we've talked about this in the show before, but one of the coolest things about Max fandom is that you're really tapping into pride across the world. And when the Max are good, when the Max are firing on all cylinders, there's just a global audience for this that gets revved up, that gets fired up. What is it like to play for a team that really can inspire and reach people literally across the globe?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really cool that it's a lot of people think that Division III is will have small fan bases or not so much attention, but I mean, YU is getting more attention, has more fans than I would say. I don't know, I can't give that a number, but 50% or a lot more of Division I schools. So I think it's really cool that, I mean, yeah, there are people that talk about YU. I got people that texted me, people that live in Israel. So people that live halfway across the globe are following Max basketball. So I think that's really cool that it's a global, honestly, at this point, it's a global fan base and a global program. So I think that's awesome.
It's incredible. I remember there was it was the first time that YU got to the NCAA tournament. I think we were playing at York, I want to say. And I remember the president of the university, Rabbi Ari Berman, telling me that he encountered just a couple of families. I think it was an entire synagogue, an entire temple, sent a bus or a van or whatever it was to the game. And he said, why are you here? Do you send kids to YU? No, we're not connected to YU. Why were people there? We're there because this is the Jewish team. This is the team that's playing for the Jewish people, and we're Jewish. We're going to show up. I mean, it's amazing, even doing this show, just to get messages from people around the world, some affiliated, some not affiliated, some affiliated in different ways. It's just amazing to get messages from people literally around the world in Israel, but even in some places you wouldn't even expect, who are just invested in this team, invested in the story, and not just invested in the team no matter what, but in really, really excited about the excellence that the team brings. And ultimately, I think that's really what this is about. So Max, if you're, speaking to Max fans, both Max MAX and Max MACS, if you're speaking to Max fans out there who are really excited for a new season of Max basketball, what's the message you want to deliver to them to get them psyched up for the season?
Yeah, I mean, if I say one thing, I think we'll be an exciting team, just a team that's going to be unselfish, push the pace, run our offense, hopefully run our offense well. And just, I think a lot of people are off us for sure this year by saying, oh, Ryan's gone, Gabe's gone. More guys are gone, not just to name a couple. And they think that they won't be at those levels or won't be as good. And I think that's totally BS, and that we're going to totally be great. And we're going to prove a lot of people wrong.
That's music to our ears. And like I said, this is, the ceiling. I already started this by saying the ceiling is high. It's one of the better recruiting classes we've seen, if not the best. So I think the fan base is there, and we're so excited again to have you as part of this. We appreciate you, jumping on, and when it's not going to be we know it's the first, but not going to be the last time
let's
talk.
hope.
And we know we're going to have our hands full of Max basketball this year.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for having me on.
I'm so
Great.
excited.
Yeah, it's fun. I'm actually in Chicago right now training with a lot of my former teammates. So actually the time difference kind of tripped me up. That's why
that's amazing.
Yeah, so
hit up Romanian salami. That's the only good reason to be in Chicago. That's not the only good reason. It's the best reason to be in Chicago as a Jewish person. Romanian salami and basketball. This is amazing.
Yeah. Awesome.
We're so excited for an amazing season. We're excited for the Zacom highlight reels. We're excited to really follow on the story of this team, and we're excited for your leadership. So best of luck this season, and can't wait to follow along.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited.
Thanks for making the time. Safe travel. See you in New York.
Yeah, we'll see you guys soon.
Hey.
You can't be more excited, right? But from talking to, really talking to these guys, aside from the fact that it's it's like talking to, at least at my age, it's like talking to, your kid a little bit, but it's just so cool. It's so cool to be they're just excited. They're coming into something that somebody's already laid the foundation for. And you could tell that, heard from both of them, right? They kind of want to help make it their own, right? They're kind of thank you and let's go. Right, which is an awesome attitude to have, and I know they really appreciate the history. That it's kind of obviously we're putting them in a position to have that, but that mentality is so great to see before they've even set foot on campus.
What I love is that, if you joined the team last year or year before, you're playing on Ryan and Gabe's and Eitan's team, right? And you're kind of an OFEC's team, right? And you're joining now. OFEC is still here, but I feel like there's a huge vacuum, meaning there's a huge vacuum of presence here, and you can kind of put your own stamp on the team, which is really, really, really exciting. And that, of course, brings us to the man, the myth.
It's like, you know what? It's a little bit like Beetlejuice or like Candyman. It's like you say that someone can put their stamp on the team. You know who's going to show up? Someone who's going to tell you whether you can put your stamp on the team. That's what's going to happen. Elliot, it's so good to see you.
That's a great looking
background. A little on the nose.
It's almost basketball season, huh?
Well, that's why we're super excited to welcome on the Rosh Yeshiva of the Motion Offense, aka Steiny Rutzain, aka Jacob Steinmetz's dad. He's the cutest Abba in Diamondbacks history. He is our fearless leader. He's Coach Elliot Steinmetz. Coach, thank you so much for joining us. This is awesome.
This is awesome. How's it going?
Ball Habatim are in effect, which
I'm really sorry we're pushing up your timeline of talking about Max basketball, but
honestly, we got to start early this year too. I mean, that's the most unique thing, I think. Well, not the most unique thing, but one of the most unique things about coaching at yeshiva is, I would say, either every other year or every third year, we got to start early because of the Chagim. So I think we come back to school on October 19th or 20th after Sukkot, which means we lose 5 days of practice, which means we get an NCAA waiver to start practicing on September 19th.
Baruch Hashem. Oh my God. See, this is what I'm talking about. It's make the Chagim work for you. That's the way to go. We're so excited that mild-mannered attorney Elliot Steinmetz has stepped into the phone booth, taken off the shirt, and emerged as Coach Elliot Steinmetz of Max Basketball. We have so many questions for you, and we're so excited about this. But I actually want to start off with a question from the chat because he's waited so patiently. Isaac Hollander in the chat. Why you recruited so many players from non-yeshiva day school, high school programs? Team building and minutes distribution will be very different than with 2 to 3 stars. How will Coach Steinmetz handle it? So let's jump right in. How are you thinking about this new mix of players? You have so many new toys to play with.
I mean, look, we have a lot of young guys coming in who have a lot to learn, that's for sure. But they're certainly talented. What we like to do when we're deep is we just do like a raffle at the beginning of the year, and then we start pulling names out of the hat.
Classic yeshiva day school move, the Geo raffle. I love it.
Honestly, I mean, I think it's a blessing for us. It's when you have a meritocracy, it's just a great opportunity for guys to obviously compete and push for minutes. And I think we're going to have significant talent, some young guys who are going to be pushing some of the guys who are coming back, and obviously some of the guys coming back who are going to have the opportunity to both lead as well as compete with the guys who are coming in, and it'll hopefully lead to very competitive practices, which is something we've had over the last couple of years as well. But it could lead to some really good momentum on the court too.
I mean, you guys have some real veteran leaders coming back. Ofek, Reef, Matan Zucker. What kind of in the past, your team leaders are super duper star Ryan Terrell. Veteran, mature presence, Gabe Leifer. What kind of leadership style are you expecting and hoping for from, and what can we as fans expect from a leadership perspective from players like Ofek and Matan and others?
And Oren and Adi, and I mean, probably a few more there.
Course, yeah. I mean, Adi, I think is a big name that you mentioned. Obviously Tani, Matan, and Ofek, guys who are going to be back, who have been in the system now for a couple of years. We have some really mature guys coming back who have kind of, for all intents and purposes, grown up in success a little bit, which I think is a big plus, because they've gotten to see what it took for the guys like Ryan and Gabe and Eitan and some of them were there, with Simcha and Donnie, to kind of see what it took for those guys to build us into the program that we've become over the last few years. And I think in order to sustain that, you have to have that continuity. And I think we have, the right maturity level and the right guys kind of coming back who understand roles, understand how to lead, how to deal with guys who are younger, who are coming into the system for the first time and have to learn it. I'm excited for it. I think it's going to be a really fun and successful year.
Does it work like the Sunhead, Moshe to the Sunhead? Do you have, would you take those veterans, are they trusted to sort of teach the motion offense in some ways, or sort of teach the roles of the positions, or is it really there needs to be a foundation first, and then before that happens, like how does it actually, sort of get transmitted?
Right. So it's a mix of both. I think the guys will probably get together and run some pickup. And, there are guys, like Adi, like Ofek, like Tani, who have been in the system for a few years, really understand it to a point where they could probably teach it to an effect. And I think they'll probably start to get guys, going and get guys learning some of the basics, before we even get going on our, with coaches. And that's the hope, obviously. I mean, some of these guys are already asking for film, which is great. We've been able to send out some tutorials and some film to some of the new guys to get a kind of a jump start on the the actual X's and O's and stuff that they can read about and watch and learn about. But it's important. It's important more so during practice and during the season when we're actually going than it is before. We can do the teaching, obviously, and it's great for them to get a head start, but we've been doing this for a while. We can do the teaching in the first few practices. It's the support network. It's the ability to sit down with a teammate after practice and go over film and look at what you're doing and kind of get a good understanding of where you're cutting and where you're screening and what you might be doing wrong and what you're not understanding. It's that ability to kind of have, that peer-to-peer education from some of the guys who are coming back. And look, that takes a certain kind of personality and a certain kind of leadership. And I'm pretty sure we've had really good ones in the past. They're not always seniors, right? We had, I think, Donnie Katz and Simcha Halpert were captains as sophomores for us. Tani, Adi are not. I don't believe they're even seniors coming up. I mean, Adi's 100 years old, so he probably counts as a senior. But Tani's got another year. Ofek obviously will be a senior. But it's we're expecting leadership from some guys who are who are younger, but we feel they could do it. So
we know there's a lot of turnover with the roster, which I'll have some questions on. But I'm curious, how's the coaching staff going to look next season?
I think we're in the same place as of now. We're in the same place as we were last year. So we should be bringing back the same staff.
Awesome. We'd like your staff.
I like my staff too. I'm glad they're sticking around.
Yeah, I know you were waiting for that approval, to get.
I didn't know that Shu was doing analytics on the bench also.
Wait till you see those color-coded pieces, but it's really, it's really. I think obviously you talked about the continuity, right? I mean, that's really what it is, right? Meaning they're great people, but also it's great continuity, great teachers to be able to carry that over. That's just a tremendous advantage.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have so many, as we said earlier, you should have so many shiny new toys to play with, which is really exciting for us as Max fans. We're going to, over the course of the season, obviously, we'll break down everybody and get to everybody. And we're excited as fans to learn about these new players. But just to get the conversation started, so we just had on the show earlier this evening, Daniel Margusov and Max Zakheim. So we can just start there. Two new guys Max fans know nothing about. Why should Max fans be excited about those two young men?
So I caught a little bit of it, and it's probably the most I've heard Daniel talk in the few years that I was recruiting him. So, good job Daniel, to speak a little bit, which was nice. I think you have, two different backgrounds, obviously, and two different paths, but you have two guys who have played, in those two guys specifically, two guys who have played very high level basketball, and have, a real understanding, I think, of what it takes to compete, at the college level. And, I think that will translate, immediately certainly into practices and then hopefully into games. I mean, obviously, Max is coming in with a year of Division I experience, Division I practices, Division I weight room, and all that stuff. And I think that'll be, extremely helpful for us and for our guys to kind of see his habits and his work ethic. I mean, he's been a hard worker since he was in Frisch and since he was in high school. That kid, really never takes a day off. And Daniel's kind of from that same mold, and obviously doesn't have that that year of college yet. This will be his first, but he comes from that same mold, having played in the big time program, out in California, and competing against some of the top schools out there. And I've been monitoring his progress over the course of the off season, and that kid also, I've been begging him to take some days off because I don't want him to wear it down before he even gets here.
He might be working out at 5 before the 6 a.m. practice during the season.
Yeah, exactly.
So tell us like about you're going from obviously like we lost a lot of senior level talent, but you've brought in a very big, very talented, interesting recruiting class. So how do you think about this like transition and like the next season and what you're expecting, what Max fans should be looking out for?
Yeah, I think it's fun. I think I mean, fans are great. We love fans, but they love to look at what's on the way out faster than they like to look at what's on the way in, and what's going to be. And I remember when I started coaching my first year here at YU, we had a player named Benji Ritholtz. And Benji happened to have played for me in high school, and absolutely
shouts to Red Holtzman.
superstar player, and was actually a superstar coach for us for a little while too. But I remember we had a really good year, went to the playoffs, had a real successful start. I think we were like 9-3 to start the year, and it was a pretty exciting pretty exciting run throughout the course of the year. And Benji was probably getting like 23, 24 a game and just playing great ball. And I remember after the season, everyone was like, "Oh, that was fun while it lasted, but Benji's graduating, so we're done." And then the next year, Shelby gets his 1,000 points or whatever it was, and and Mike Berg was there, and Jordan Hode and Shia Weiss, and then those guys graduated. We went around further in the playoffs, I think, or I think we even had a home game that year for the first time, and those guys leave and graduate, and everyone's like, "Yeah, well, it was nice while it lasted," but Shelby's graduating and Shia's graduating, and then in come Simcha and Donnie, and then follows Gabe, and then Ryan, and all of a sudden it's like every year. There's no reason in my mind we can't continue to kind of move up. We haven't reached the pinnacle. We haven't won an NCAA championship. We haven't gotten past the Sweet 16, obviously. We're not dominating our conference. We're having we've had a good run in the last few years, but you guys saw it last year. There's some really good teams in our conference. There's some really good coaches in our conference, and every game is a dogfight. We had some talent last year. We had some games we were able to pull away, and we also got challenged plenty. So I think these new guys will come in. They're as talented as any class that we've had. Obviously, we have guys back from last year who I think some of them you obviously got to see play. Some of them you don't get to see them dominating in practice and working their butts off in practice and how good they are and how hard they work. And hopefully you'll get that opportunity this year to see some of the guys that were maybe in a lesser role, but are just as capable as some of the guys who have left. So I always embrace that challenge and the kind of newness of a team coming in. I think it's exciting. I think it's fun. It's a chance to kind of grow with our guys and kind of mold a new not necessarily a new identity, but for that group a new identity and a new path towards the same goals that we're trying to achieve that we still have not achieved.
You talk about like obviously a lot of focus is on the offense, right? And sort of teaching that and sort of getting people to understand, because I think that's where the conversation goes. We talked about before earlier in this podcast, the stretch the team played on D in the Skyline tournament was like some of the best defense we've ever seen ever. I mean, like across multiple levels. It really locked down, and the championship game was just like otherworldly. Is there something from a defensive scheme standpoint? Is it all personnel? Is there something they figured out? Was it just really the seniors knowing this is like the last shot and then sort of committing to it? Or was there something like that you have in mind when you think about the defense for this season as well?
Yeah, I mean, look, we obviously had individually some really good defensive players, and I think we'll continue to. We certainly have scheme, and we have a great we have guys who do a great job with scout. Starts mostly with the Katzes and Ellie and Donnie, and it's gives us an opportunity to kind of have a real plan going into each game. But we have a pretty good defensive scheme, and I like to talk about it. I've gotten interviewed a lot, obviously, over the last few years about our offense. I get a lot of emails and a lot of phone calls from different coaches asking to learn about our offense, and it's far and few between. But we do occasionally get calls from people who want to learn about our, what we're doing defensively. But I always love the opportunity to talk about how good our guys have been defensively the last few years. You go back as far as you go back to the 29-1 season. And everyone wanted to talk about the offensive outburst in the NCAA tournament in the first two rounds. And what I think a lot of people, don't realize, and I think what gets glossed over a little bit is, we were so damn good defensively in those 2 games. Our guys followed scout, like, we had guys that we wanted to hold under certain numbers, and we held them under certain numbers. And it was like, we happened to have had the best 2 offensive games we probably have ever had, but we didn't need to. Like we were averaging, I think in mid to high 80s a game that year. We really could have scored in the high 70s or low 80s and had a bad game, defensively, offensively, and still won those games because we were just so good defensively. I think the same played into last year a little bit. It was the same kind of thing. Obviously, going into the Skyline tournament, we did not play our best ball offensively in the Skyline conference. Barring a few moments, and obviously Ryan went off against Mount St. Vincent for a little while, but certainly in the championship game we were not at our best offensively, and our defense really carried us. And you go into the NCAA tournament, and I thought we did a pretty good job, except for maybe one specific part of scout and one specific player who got way too many looks from the outside. We did a pretty good job defensively in that game, but the problem was we ran into a team that did a better job defensively, and we just we couldn't do enough. So I think it's it's great, and I think we'll have the ability to score this year just like we did last year. It may not come from the same consistent places that we're used to, but I think we'll probably be similar in the statistic range, in the numbers range, because we have a lot of guys who put the ball in the basket in a lot of different ways. But if we can be consistent defensively like we were the last few years, then we'll be sitting there at the end of the year with a good chance to win games.
We were talking earlier a little bit about like that the last few years, everyone knew that like Ryan could kind of lift them if things got bad, and that potentially affecting like the mentality offensively. So do you think that was the case to an extent, and do you think that there's a benefit in a way to not having that like dominant go-to scorer where like everyone needs to contribute for the team to put up like?
So I would love to pretend I can live in a world where there's a benefit to not having Ryan Terrell on my team.
Fair. I
don't have that. I don't have the luxury. But that being said, honestly, really, and I was talking to Ryan about this actually the other day. We were kind of reminiscing to a few years ago. Ryan really kind of became that more this year than ever before. I think 2 years ago, I take out that COVID season because it was 7 games and whatever. But the 29-1 year, Ryan was another. I mean, he was great, but he was another guy. Like we had a number of guys. It was different games, different scorers, different. And yes, he was our leading scorer, but he was doing it on 14 shots a game. It wasn't like anything crazy. It just happened to be, we went into an NCAA tournament where in the first round, the teams sold.
Gabe, right?
The what?
They decided to take away Gabe, right?
That's right. You go into a game, exactly. That's where I was going. You go into a game where they're literally, their whole game plan was, let's not let the big guy beat us, and they doubled him, and they were trying to keep him away from the ball. And Gabe being Gabe, he's happy with 4 points, 10 assists, and 10 rebounds. And obviously Ryan and Sim were the beneficiary. Now Ryan was the beneficiary to the tune of 41. People, don't forget, Sim had like 25 in that game, and I think Eitan had like 15 or 17 in that game. So there was a lot of scoring going around off of Gabe, and then we go into the next game, and you have a team sitting in a zone, where again Gabe is not going to be a focal point from a shooting perspective. He becomes the absolute focal point from the offensive perspective, in that we work through him, and he gets a triple double. I think he had a triple double in that game, if I'm not mistaken. And Ryan obviously gets his, I don't remember, 36 or whatever it was. And, again, Sim had another 20 and Eitan had another 15. Ofek, I think, had double digits in those games. So there was just a lot to kind of work around. It just, it happened to fit in those games where I think they were kind of coming in and, hey, not that they were letting Ryan get his points, but they were focused in a little bit of a different direction. And our guys were just good enough to recognize what was there and that he was cooking. So, I think this year wasn't tremendously different. Like, you could argue he didn't take enough shots. A lot of people like to. I could argue back that we averaged 90 points a game, so it's it works both ways. But he didn't take a lot of shots, Ryan. He makes a lot of shots. And I don't think things so much changed offensively, other than you might get one or two more passes, because what was an easy shot for him might require one more pass for us to get the look we need this year. But I don't know that it changes the metrics or the shooting percentages if we do it right.
So stepping away from just the numbers, I mean, we talked about before the spectacle of last year, right? And sort of the how do you decompress from a season like that? Like what, like did you feel like you need to? Did it or did it just that's just not the way you work? But what goes on after a season like that finishes, right? Sort of the off season for you.
I didn't even, was there a lot of attention on us last year?
A little, I think a local Jewish paper.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
an article. I mean, honestly, you really kind of try to live off it a little bit, right? So you certainly use it in recruiting, because we're getting attention like nobody else is probably at forget Division III level. Other than a few schools at Division I level, we're getting attention last year, like a lot of schools haven't. I think the goal is not to decompress from it. The goal, I think, is to kind of roll it forward. I want it to be like that. That's what we want. We want people to feel proud when they come to our gym, that they're looking at something that they feel a part of, they feel invested in, and they feel proud of. I remember the first few years that I was there, it was like my parents would come, and then a few of the guys' parents, I think a few guys' parents would come. My partner at work would come to the games, and that was it. It was like there were 50 people in the gym. A couple of students would stroll in if they wanted to skip night Seder or something. But other than that, it was not a lot. And then sort of by the second year, there was just almost like a mini crowd started coming to the game. We started to have crowds because we started winning consistently. And I remember when it shifted, I remember it was I don't know if it was the year we won for the first time, or it was even the year before that, probably, where you'd go into games the first couple of years and we'd be winning, and it would just be quiet in the gym, right? Because everyone was kind of expecting the other team to make a run, and they're not going to win. You know how it is with right? So they're waiting for the other shoe to drop and for the other team to come back.
Always the victim. We're so ready for it.
Right. It was never raucous and confident and rowdy. Then it was it got to a point.
I don't know what you're talking about.
No, I'm not. Not at all. Then it got to a point where if we were winning, then we started to have a little confidence, right? So if we were winning, the fans would be loud and they would be into it and they'd be confident, and it was great. Then we hit a year finally, and maybe it was the year that we won that first time, and maybe it was when when Gabe came in halfway through. No, it wasn't. It was the year before, and it was the semester before. I remember we were playing St. Joe's, Long Island, and we were down 11 or 12 at halftime. And I remember in the second half, we had fans. We were down double digits, and we had fans getting thrown out for heckling the St. Joe's bench. And I'm they actually believe that we're going to come back and win the game. Right? So it shifted. There was all of a sudden there was a confidence in what we were doing and the guys on the floor that, hey, yeah, they're down 11 points. So what? In 5 minutes, they won't be. And then sure enough, Simcha Halpert goes for 30 points in the second half, and we win the game by 12 points. But that was, I remember, such a turning point for me with the program in terms of the fans, where they kind of were it wasn't just that they were on board, they were fully on board, have our backs, win or lose, they were with us, and it was just the excitement was there, and I think we have obviously the right guys who can handle it and put the ball in the basket more times than the other team, most importantly.
So one of the things that I love about that is you keep using the word program. And one thing we talked about earlier on the show is why it seems like we have made the leap from just good team, which is ephemeral, comes and goes, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, to good program. And, I think I don't want to do the Skip Bayless take of maybe YU is better without Ryan Terrell. We know we're not, but
They calling me Skip Bayless?
Well, I got the hypothetical, but I'm saying if we really wanted to Stephen A this, yes, Ryan Terrell. However, but if there's something to the fact that we just got a really strong recruiting class, which we've never really seen, right? A recruiting class this strong, at least go back, however long. We really haven't seen a recruiting class this strong. And I think there is a tendency for some fans to kind of misremember, as you were saying, misremember how the last couple of seasons gone, or how the last couple of seasons went. I don't know if fans were tuning in just because Ryan Terrell might make the NBA. Fans were tuning in because for the first time, we were winning our conference. Like that conference championship was the most, prior to the last tournament game, it was the most watched. It was the most watched game in Max Live history, right? And for us to have that kind of level of sustained excellence is, I think, the kind of thing that keeps fans coming back again and again and feeling that confidence. So with that in mind, as we gear up for a new season, I think, obviously goal number one for us as fans is, let's win the Skyline, right? Let's be really competitive in the Skyline, then let's go out and win the Skyline. So as we're looking forward to a new season and you look at the Skyline landscape, we're not the only team that's had turnover. We're not the only team, that's had some changes, whether at the coaching level or at the player level. What are you thinking about strategically that we need to do in order to win this conference?
So for me right now, I am hyper focused on day one of practice. That's it. I'm hyper focused on day one of practice. And getting to see the
Steinmetz, ladies and gentlemen. Yes.
I really want to see us win our first day of practice. That's really all I care about. Look, we'll play a few games before we get into conference play. We'll play a couple of preseason games, obviously. I think I'm at a point where it is different, right? You go into a year like last year and you have a whole bunch of seniors and grad students and a little bit of an older team, and you're kind of going in there with all these great goals and all that, and you have to be able to handle that, right? I remember we came off of winning the conference for the first time in school history, 5 years ago, and the next year we pretty much bring everybody back and add Ryan Terrell. Do you remember what our record was after 6 games?
1-5.
1-5.
Yeah.
We were 1-5, and we barely won the one. So you gotta, and that was a real learning experience for those guys, and it was a learning experience for me too as a coach. It's the ability to kind of hyper focus on. I know, and I get that it's cliche, but it's so true. Hyper focusing on just one day at a time, one practice at a time, and the ability to kind of just compete before you can start looking at bigger goals. So yeah, from a global view, the conference is going to be good. I don't know yet what half these teams have because nobody posted their rosters yet. Assuming that some of the younger guys and some of the teams that were good last year come back, which I expect they will, there'll be some really good teams in our conference, and we know we have good coaches, so they'll be ready to play. I expect for us at some point to develop and grow into a place where we're competing in our conference, at the end of the year and right up at the top. That's what we want. That's what we're here for. And, it's there's no other long-term goals. The first one always is, we got to try to win the conference, but before we can even get to those things, we have to have our guys so super focused on, how are we going to win on September 19th when we walk into the gym for the first time and get a chance to practice, and again on the 20th and the 21st, and that week, and then when we come back from the holidays, and then we go into our first preseason game, and forget winning the game, how are we winning every possession, and how are we running things the right way, and if we can build that consistency and that continuity over the course of the first month or so, then maybe we could start talking about St. Joe's, Connecticut, which I think is our first game.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up here, I think we got to give the people what they want. And so our last question for you is, how's the Diamondbacks farm system looking this season?
The farm system looks great.
Not for any particular reason, just
No, they do have some studs. There's some kids actually from Jacob's draft class who are moving quickly that look really, really good. And Jacob's been good. Overall he's been good. He's struggled here and there, like
it's so exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited for him to eventually move up to an affiliate where we could actually watch the games live. Right now, it's kind of like checking afterwards for the stats and he gave up a run here, or was it his run? Was it somebody else? Was it earned? You have to cobble together exactly what happened and try to get an understanding of how he pitched. So it's not the easiest thing, but he's had some really good games. He's had a couple of bad ones. I think the the inconsistency to be expected from an 18-year-old kid who's suddenly throwing against guys who graduated college and were tops in the SEC and ACC and stuff like that. But he's most importantly, he's happy and he's throwing well. So it's good, and they're treating him extremely well, which is awesome.
Unbelievably exciting. And we got to have you back on when the other half of the bandwagon boys, Simi Cohn, is on. Shouts to Simi, who has been really tracking this from day one. It's pretty exciting. Coach, we are super, super excited for a new season of Max Basketball. Cannot wait to see what you guys are doing. Cannot wait to extend the Kiddush Hashem. Cannot wait to really just get back into the swing of things. Thank you so much for coming on with us.
Yeah, thanks for doing this, guys. It's awesome, as always.
No, thank you, Alec. And looking forward to the season.
You got to talk to you soon.
Bye.
Oh my God. We did it, baby.
Yeah, so that
Another
was,
episode of the Ball Habatim in the bag.
Yep, we got in a lot of guests on the first episode, but looking forward to more exciting episodes and exciting Max Basketball.
Cannot wait to take a look at some of the new prospects. As the mighty Mayor Wiesel would want us to tell you, please like and subscribe to the Ball Habatim on YouTube. We are so excited to preview the upcoming season, to talk to some more of the recruits. We want to have everybody on, and cannot wait to break this whole thing down with you guys. Man, Shua, we did it.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I feel like that was exciting. I mean, Daniel and Max are clearly ready to bring the intensity to practice, to put it mildly.
Yeah, that was awesome to see.
Yeah. They both, in different words, said basically the same thing, that they're going to really bring it.
I was excited to also see some really top hair games. I mean, Margasov, Zachheim's just got a huge fire on his head. I love it. It's amazing. This is
his hair game also is showing up.
Yeah, 100%. Right. Really is a strong hair team. Very excited for this.
Yeah.
All right.
Shua
is unbelievable. Yeah, this is always so fun. Shouts to Mayor Wiesel for engineering us to the moon. Shouts to Simi Cohn is how we should end all of our podcast. We're so excited for the rest of the Ball Habatim to join us. All of your favorites, you know them. And shouts to Nathan for joining us. Shouts to Rabbeinu Jack Turell, newest member of the Ball Habatim. So excited to bring him back on. You'll see more from him the rest of the season. And thanks, you guys. And have an awesome Shabbat Nachamta coming up. Mayo.
Have a good night.
All right.